Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. This podcast is for coaches, leaders, and learners at all levels in organizations and in all walks of life. Here, you will get just-in-time learning that is research-based and practice-focused. The goal is personal and professional mastery. And now, our session today. Hi everybody, it is my pleasure to welcome to our show today Maya Hu Chan, and she's going to be talking about her latest book called Saving Face, and this is a book on leadership. It's also a book on cross-cultural leadership. So before we get into talking with Maya about the book, let me introduce you briefly to Maya. So Maya is a globally recognized management consultant. She's an executive coach. She's an author. She's a speaker and the founder and president of her company, Global Leadership Associates. Maya was an anchor for the China Broadcasting Corporation in Taiwan, a former CEO of a nonprofit organization in California. She's a columnist for Inc., co-author of the book Global Leadership. She's trained and coached thousands of leaders from Fortune 500 corporations, nonprofits, public sectors across the globe in North America, Asia, Europe, Australia, and Latin America. I can't do justice to her profile. What I'll do is I'll put up her LinkedIn profile in the description box of the podcast. So Maya, welcome.
Thank you, AJ. What a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And we're talking about your book, which you have just launched. I believe it's just going to get released, right?
Yes. It's being released on June 9th.
On June 9th. So we are a few weeks away, and it's about saving face. So in a nutshell, give us a little bit about the story. What led you to write this book?
Yes, AJ. I am a executive coach and leadership educator. So in the last over 20 years that I have worked with thousands of leaders around the world, and I have shared with them a concept that resonates with them at all levels in different industries and at different positions and different functions. And this concept is so essential to their leadership, but it's also sometimes counterintuitive. And it is the concept of face. And so, this concept of face goes beyond its origin of China. It's really a universal concept. It permeates all levels of social interactions, business interactions, and face speaks to the common human desire to be accepted, respected, and valued. So when the term, it's not about the money it's used, guess what? The real issue, it's often about face. So that over the years, I've worked with leaders and understanding their challenges and their frustrations in terms of leading, managing, motivating people. And when we look deeper, when we really dig deeper to find out what really is happening, it really has to do with how people were interacting with each other and then how you make people feel. And so, beyond the business concept of saving face, I'm really hoping that this book will serve as a catalyst for all forms of communication. Okay, from those, communication occur between multinational corporations down to individual interactions with friends and neighbors, for teachers to interact, relate to their students, and the parents communicate with their children. So many other social interactions and contexts. I think that if we can apply the concept of face, that hopefully we will be able to build more authentic, empathetic, and long-lasting relationship with people.
That's awesome. And so one of the key things that I'm getting, this is a universal book that focuses on social communication at an organization level, at an individual level, and not just within the organization, but even in interpersonal relationships between parents and kids. So it's not a cross-cultural leadership book. It's a much wider book. It's a much wider audience that we are talking about. That's the first thing I'm beginning to understand about this book.
Absolutely. And, initially, because of the nature of my work, that I see the concept of face can really apply to how leaders relate to their team members and their colleagues. But then as I look deeper and start to observe the social and interpersonal communications, I realized that this universal concept can really apply to everyone. So that's why I decided to write this book, to help people understand what is face and how can we utilize this concept to really benefit not only just ourselves, but also our community and our organizations.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about what you mean by this term saving face.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, let's define face. Okay. Mm-hmm. So face represents one's self-esteem, self-worth, identity, reputation, your status, and your pride. Okay, so when we think about face, it really represents your whole person, inside and out. Okay, and so when we think about the concept of face, there's three different key concepts. Okay, and the first concept is about honoring face. And the second one is that we want to avoid losing face. Number three is when situation call for it, that how can we make sure we can save face effectively for ourselves and also most importantly for others. So those are the three key concepts: honoring face, losing face, and saving face.
Honoring face, losing face, and saving face. And I think there is a very clear resonance for us within the Asian cultures, because we also have similar terms in our own language, and shades of what you're talking about. The term implies that, but you've just sort of made it extremely comprehensive. So in the context of leadership, tell us how these three concepts, honoring, losing, saving, would apply in a leadership context.
Yes, absolutely. So now when you experience problems at work, whether there's a conflict or people have lack of motivation or a lack of engagement, at its core, it often has to do with face, but then people may not use this word exactly saying, I feel like I've lost face at work. But most likely you're going to hear something like, well, my boss doesn't appreciate what I do. Or people don't really treat my ideas seriously. Or I'm not being heard. I don't feel I belong. So when you hear those kind of expressions, that people often feel like they're not really part of the team, and then often feel they're being excluded. So when you hear those kind of expressions, and as leaders, that we step back and then think about what's really going on here. So I like to think of a space as a social currency. Okay, so when you think about the social currency that in our time here, face it's like the more face you have, the easier and faster you can get things done. Okay, just imagine that you and I first meet, and we don't know each other. So how do we establish rapport and trust, and then build a long-term relationship over time? Is that we wanted to start building a supply of face with somebody by continuously making deposit. So we build trust. How do you do that? First, we can think about is that how do we honor the face of the other person? For example, it's not rocket science. There are many things we can do. They're very simple, but then they also require just paying a little attention. For example, I ask you for your input. I listen to you, genuinely really paying attention to how you feel and what's going on in your life. And then I give credit for when you do something well, and I express appreciation and empathize with the other person, and I acknowledge their input and give their voice equal time and weight when we're in a meeting setting. So there's so many different ways, small or big, that we basically sending a message that we want to honor the other person. I'm telling you, I see you, I hear you, and you matter. So that's the first concept we call honoring face, is that we lift people up, and then we build their confidence, and then we build trust. It's like making deposit in our bank account, in our relationship.
Okay.
So that's the first concept about honoring face. Now, the second thing, the second concept about face is it's something that we wanted to avoid. It's called losing face. So, when I was growing up in Taiwan, AJ, I often hear the saying either from my teacher or from my parents. It's a very old Chinese saying. It goes like this: spilled water is hard to regain. Spilled water is hard to regain. So just imagine that you have a glass of water on the table and then you accidentally knock it over and then spill all over the floor, right? I mean, you try to get it back. That's nearly impossible. It's very hard to do. Yeah. And then even if you manage to get some back in your glass, do you still want to drink it? Probably not, right? It's not the same anymore. So what this saying really teaches is that as leaders or as a human being, that when we interact with others, we wanted to treat a relationship like this glass of water, that we don't want to spill the water and say something that can actually damage the relationship. And sometimes once it's spilled, the relationship is damaged because of something you've said or done that it's very difficult to repair. It may take a long time or it may never be the same. So now losing face describe conditions where people feel devalued, unappreciated, or even humiliated. And so what happens when people lose face? It provokes shame, fear, guilt, vulnerability, and possibly a wide range of negative emotions. And then so those kind of negative emotions that sometimes goes without, we don't always see it, right? But then those emotions, those feelings can directly impact how people show up at work, and then how well they perform, and how much they speak up at meetings, right? And how much they share their ideas, or even how long they stay with the company. So we do wanted to, as leaders, here's another interesting metaphor when I think about losing face, that we cannot go on an autopilot. It's like we're driving, right? We can't just go on autopilot, not thinking, just keep going our same route and, not paying attention. Autopilot doesn't work. And sometimes because if we keep going the way that we typically operate, when we're working with people of different backgrounds, either cross-culturals or people in different countries or even different generations, different genders, if we keep going on autopilot and assume everybody like the same way I do, and we can crash and burn, we don't even know it. We can offend people, we can cause somebody to lose face unintentionally. So that's something that leaders need to be more aware, is just be mindful about what are some of the things that I do. It can be a insensitive jokes that we're telling, or perhaps giving negative feedback in public to somebody, or you challenge somebody in a way that really make them feel disrespected, or interrupt somebody when they're speaking. There could be very subtle things that we do and that can actually cause somebody to lose face, and we don't even know it. So that's something that I think the leaders need to be aware of, to get off the autopilot and then start really pay attention to our behaviors and our words. What is the impact on others? Think before we speak and pause before we act. And that it's a good way to kind of avoid causing someone to lose face.
How true, how true. And I'm sure you see a lot of this happening as an executive coach, where perhaps leaders without intention end up creating a condition where their team members may lose face. And then that creates all the issues that you spoke about in terms of feeling devalued or humiliated or shame or guilt. So if a leader does that unintentionally, then I believe we come to the third aspect, which is saving face, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, so let me tell you a story of saving
Okay.
that actually goes back to, well, this leader actually caused somebody to lose face. So a leader, let's just call her Linda. Okay, not a real name. And she is a team leader working for a IT company that she worked with people remotely. I mean, considering currently that we're in the COVID-19 situation that everybody's working remotely, but in her daily work that she used technology to communicate with her team, whether they're sitting right next to her or they're thousands of miles away. So she used this platform called Slack. I think a lot of people know what it is. So then now using Slack to communicate, either transmit information, sharing tasks, assignments, and or even giving feedback. So she prides herself of being very technologically savvy and highly efficient, and also very direct and transparent. So when she started using this with her whole team on a daily basis, multiple times a day, she will be giving feedback to her team members when they're doing something either wrong or perhaps not meeting deadlines. And what happened was that the person that received the feedback was feel humiliated because everybody on the team can see that, can read that message. And so the person not only feel humiliated, then also caused the person to shut down and really kind of feel like lose face in this case, right? And then what happened was that the rest of the team also had a negative perception. They thought, wow, I don't want to be like that person. So I better be careful. I'm going to keep my head down, not taking any risk, and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. So then what happened was that very simple act of providing feedback to one person that actually create a fear-based culture. So impact the entire team, that people stop taking risk and they stop speaking up and they stop sharing ideas. And then all they're focusing on was to protect themselves. So then they would not be humiliated on Slack. And so the team's performance suffered over time. And Linda started to notice that something was wrong. So then when she reached out to me and to be her coach, that we started dig deeper. And then we started getting some feedback, collecting feedback from her team, and then realized that her communication approach was really the root cause of the mistrust and also the fear-based culture. So then once she realized that was the reason, and she really decided that this is something that I'm going to tackle. And then so this transformed the way she leads. She started taking direct negative feedback offline. And then she would provide positive feedback online with her team members. And she really started paying attention to the tone and how she provide feedback to her team. And then so over time, it takes 6 months. It's not an easy task to do this consistently, mindfully. And then finally, she turned things around. She has saved face, not only for her team members, but also for herself. But that's a good example of today in our leadership scenario, that we're all using technology to communicate. And sometimes we can cause people to lose face unintentionally. And if you're aware of it, and you can absolutely fix it.
What an excellent story. And my sense is that a situation like this would get amplified or aggravated if it was a cross-cultural team, right? Rather than just everybody from one particular culture. So how would it get amplified, for example, if there were Asians in Linda's team?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I tell you a funny story. It's also a true story.
Okay.
I love the story because it is so common. Now, so let's just say John is American manager, that I'm his coach. And so John told me one time that he's a Singaporean working for American company, actually. So John came to me and said, well, Maya, I'm really upset because my boss, who is American, actually, we had a call today, and then he called me stupid. And I'm really humiliated and I'm upset. I don't know what to do with this. I just can't believe it. And then so I asked John, I said, John, what exactly did your boss say? Because I knew his boss. And I thought, well, his boss was actually, it's always a respectful, good leader. So why would he say something like this? So I asked John, I said, what exactly did your boss say? He said, well, we were talking about this new idea for our project. And so I provided some ideas and we were talking about it. And my boss said, oh, that's a no-brainer. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, okay, I know what the problem is. No-brainer. He said, well, no-brainer, it's, he's saying I'm stupid. I say, and so I immediately explained to him what this slang mean in American culture, right? And so he was so relieved once he heard that. And it has nothing to do with him being stupid. Really, it's about this is obvious solution. So it's not a personal attack, and his boss certainly didn't try to insult him. But you know what? His boss said this, not even thinking that this could create a negative impact on John. And so it's something, again, is that, and John would never go to his boss and say, why did you call me stupid? What does no-brainer mean? He would not actually take that step to verify that. So we have to be particularly cautious when we work cross-culturally to eliminate some of the usage of our daily slang and idiom in our own culture, because that actually can create an opposite impact on other people.
What an excellent example. So now we are understanding what saving face actually means, what these three aspects of social currency are. And it seems to me it's all linked to creating psychological safety within teams. So could you talk a little bit about how the concept of saving face supports creating psychological safety?
Yes. Psychological safety is so important for team performance. That there was a very famous study that was done by Google a few years ago, and they study, hundreds of teams around the world. I believe it was 160 teams around the world in Google, and try to identify what are some of the key factors that will make team work great together and make a team high performing. And after a lot of the studies and research, that they realized that the number one factor that make team great is something called psychological safety. So psychological safety involves in two things. Number one is that it's how the team communicate. So we call conversation turn taking. That when people in a psychologically safe team environment, they get to express and communicate what's in their mind freely. They don't hold back. And at the end of the conversation, at the end of the meeting, they say everything they wanted to say, and without feeling afraid of being attacked or criticized and or punished. So that's number one. It's called conversation turn taking, and that's all it has to do with communication. Now, the second important factor to create psychological safety is to have a high level of social sensitivity. Meaning that people, team members pay attention to each other's reactions, their facial expressions, their verbal, nonverbal cues, and they watch, what's really going on with other team members. And so this has to do with empathy. That when the team members have high level of social sensitivity, they demonstrate respectful behaviors and they treat each other with civility. But then they also hold each other accountable in a way that people feel that they're accountable for their performance, for their actions. But then they also feel they're being treated respectfully. So psychological safety is so important when it comes to teamwork, because then it means that people have a sense of confidence that the team will not embarrass you or reject you or punish you for speaking up. Okay. And then so it describes a team climate that characterized by interpersonal trust and mutual respect. And it's something that's so crucial for teamwork. And this directly is linked to saving face, losing face, and honoring face.
I see like honoring face, losing face, saving face, this being an iterative process of the way people interact with the large component being the honoring face as a foundation and corrective mechanisms in terms of losing or saving a face. I'm avoiding losing, and if there is, then there is saving face. So it's if the more that all team members do, this creates a culture of psychological safety. Did I get that right?
Absolutely, AJ. You got it perfectly. It's even though that psychological safety has to come from the top, but then it's everybody's responsibility. But it has to start from the leader. Okay, and so leader has to lead by example. For example, you should be the first one to show your humility and vulnerability. Okay, you be able to ask questions and show interest in the work and knowledge of other people, and be open to feedback. And also acknowledge criticism when it's appropriate. Admit you're wrong, because then you get more credibility by admitting you're wrong, and then you're moving forward with the right thing to do. And that it's a great way to show psychological safety and let people know it's okay to make mistakes. But then as long as you learn from it and you fix it, you move forward with it, and create this no blame culture. No blaming others, and let's focus on moving forward and solving the problem. And, to have this open discussion with your team about tough issues and then deal with them head on. Okay. And so number one is you have to lead by example when you're trying to create a psychological safety. And then number two is that you want to get everybody involved. So just the leader doing it is not enough. So you want to inspire, encourage your team members. Everyone is responsible to demonstrate inclusive behaviors. For example, going back to the conversation turn taking, right? If somebody noticed that, Lisa is not speaking up today, something is going on, looks like she was, thinking about something, ask her, hey, Lisa, what do you think? Bring her in. And so when people are more quiet, and ask them for their opinion, or someone who, for example, is in a remote location, and perhaps that they don't feel that they're not sitting in the same room with you, ask them, AJ, what is your take on this? We'd love to hear from you. So invite people in, give people permission, and continue to engage everyone, so that get everybody involved, and not just the leader, and anybody can do this, right? And at the same time, hold people accountable for their actions. And then so if we have trust, if we have put enough deposit in the bank account, then we will be able to really provide positive and constructive feedback for each other, and we can hold each other accountable, and people will know you're coming from the best intention. And it's much easier to work together to get things done.
All right, I get this now. So as a team leader, I'm really excited. I want to be able to create this psychological safety, this culture, and this social currency that's there. So how will your book help me and my team? How will it help us apply these principles in practice, in the way we interact?
Yes. So great question. AJ, in my book, I have offered two different models that are very simple models, but then they're easy to apply. Also very easy to remember. So let me share with you a model I call AAA model. Okay. AAA is an acronym. So the first A is aware. Okay. So when we are working with others, and when you experience some issues, the first thing is to look in the mirror and reflect and think about, what is my assumption? What is my bias? What is my assumption? And what is my belief? Okay. So first kind of reflect on your own, and then raise awareness. And then the second thing is that's the first A, is awareness. The second A is acquire. So acquire meaning that you seek to understand the situation. You seek to understand other person's point of view and also their frame of reference. Put yourself in their position. So it's more of outward expression. Now that's the second A. The third A is adapt. So adapt is that once you have that self-awareness, and then you also understand the other person's position and point of view, and then you adapt your behavior, your approach. The most effective global leaders that are great adapters, that you adapt your mindset, you adapt your behaviors to work in different situations with different people. And then but you still, of course, has your core value. And then you continue to hold strong in terms of what you believe is the right thing to do. But then you can apply the AAA model with people. Mm-hmm. So, I have a favorite story. Do we have time for that? Want to share?
Absolutely, yes.
Favorite story.
Yes.
So, AJ, this is a true story. Let's call her Jeff. Let's call him Jeff. So Jeff is a financial director of a company, of a global company. And he was facing a big crisis. Now, under his watch, a frontline employee had stolen over $100,000 in an 8-month period. And that's a big deal. Now, as finance director, Jeff was the one that designed and deployed the entire cash flow process globally. And this whole system he designed actually allowed this employee to commit the fraud undetected. So it was a high profile case, and it was discussed not only in the security meetings, but also spread quickly throughout the entire company. Everybody was talking about it. And Jeff felt entirely responsible for this and also personally victimized. And then it was an example of losing face, big time.
Yeah.
And very soon, the company's COO planned a meeting with Jeff and his entire team to discuss this issue. And everybody could see that the stress consumed Jeff. So he lost weight, he couldn't sleep, and then he developed a bad rash all over. And for days, he just kind of walking around like a dead man walking in the office. And, when the day finally arrived, Jeff and the team waited at the conference room nervously for the COO to arrive from Germany. And the COO walked in, and Jeff was, of course, you couldn't ignore how nervous he was. And then the COO broke the tension with just one sentence. He said, "I don't care about the theft." And he continued by saying that theft is unavoidable, whether you're running a hot dog stand or a multinational company. Our company was insured and would be made whole, so we'll be okay. And I only want to know that you plan to review the process and fix it. And you seem well on your way from what I can see. So as soon as the COO said that, Jeff's demeanor immediately brightened. And for the rest of the meeting, Jeff and his team focused on the problem solving and fix the process. They already had a plan, and they continued to refine it and brainstorming and work on it. And Jeff returned to his job with renewed energy, and the COO has saved his face. Yeah. So what did you see here, right? What did the COO do? Now, number one is that he created psychological safety while holding Jeff accountable. Okay. He demonstrated empathy, yet he said, "This is your responsibility. Go fix it." Right? Now, he was kind and firm. You could see that he chose his words very carefully, and then he showed humility and emotional intelligence when dealing with this emotionally very delicate situation. And then he helped Jeff overcome shame and embarrassment very quickly and refocus his energy to solve the problem and move forward. So he's sending this clear message to Jeff and his team. "I trust you. I have confidence in you to do the right thing." And that's saving face.
That is saving. What a beautiful story. And one of the things I think which is very unique to your book, and it's probably because of experience as a leadership coach, is that there are so many of these stories that illuminate the principles. And I think we can relate to so many of those stories because we've seen it, it's happened to us. It's just like very, very engaging to read. The models that you talk about, you've spoken about the 3A model. And very quickly, could you just tell us the second model? We may not have time to discuss it in detail. I think for that, we'll have to go and get the book. Just tell us about the model, because you said there are two models.
Yes. So the second model is called BUILD model, BUILD. And this is also an acronym, obviously. So each letter represents a step. So this is about, so B represent benevolence and accountability. U is understanding. I, interacting. L is learning, and D is delivery. So yeah, the book actually went into great depth and detail in each step and how you can apply each step so that you can, when you're dealing with, complicated situation, and it could be delicate or sensitive scenarios as leaders, that how can you use this model to manage and save face for others and also for the organization and for yourself as well.
So as we sort of start bringing our conversation to a close, how will this book and its messages be applicable in particular to women leaders and perhaps some of the unique challenges that they experience as leaders?
Yes, I have worked over the years with so many women leaders and, globally. And there are some very unique challenges that women leaders are facing, whether you're working internationally, across cultures, or you're managing a team or you're working in a male-dominated environment, whatever it is, or perhaps you're an entrepreneur, okay? Or it could be that you are a community leader, that whatever position you're in, that women often still facing some very subtle or not so subtle bias in terms of gender. And the women also have very often some internal challenges that they're experiencing because of their gender role at home, in the society, as well as professionally. So I have an entire chapter devoted to this topic about women leadership, and then how can you navigate and dealing with saving face and when you're working in the business world. And then there are some very specific tips and guidance that I have discussed to help women to overcome some of those barriers and to be able to really shine in your leadership role. So, I think that if you are interested in this topic, I would love to hear from you and after you read the book. And then it's something that I'm very passionate about.
How cool is that? And as you speak, occurred to me that these two models would also be excellent for a lot of our coaches, for all leadership coaches to be able to use with their own clients, right? In actual live coaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a coach myself, that I utilize the concept of face every single day when I'm working with clients. So you can, of course, when we're working with client, we want to be able to honor our client, honor their face by demonstrating respect and also lift them up and continue to listen and build trust and also preserve their dignity. And you wanted to provide effective feedback during your coaching process. And you do so by really think about what is the best way that you can demonstrate benevolence and also hold them accountable. So I like to call this tough love, right? So that, yes, I care about you, but then also you can't get away with this. Let's face this situation. Let's fix it. So I think as coach that this is such a useful concept and skill to have when we're working with our coaching clients. And I love to hear your comment. And once you practice this, and let me know how it goes, because I certainly find that very helpful.
All right. So for those of our listeners who are wondering about the book, I will put up Maya's website. And when the Amazon link is ready, I'll put up the link in the podcast description. So you can click on that and get a copy of the book. I'll also put the LinkedIn profile so that you can access her. So I encourage you to go and get the book for yourselves. It seems to be really exciting for us. It's not just a cultural book, but it's really about leading teams and becoming much better leaders. So Maya, as we bring our conversation to our close, what are some key messages that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I think that one thing I keep thinking about in terms of what I may want to share is that I would love to have us all be mindful about our impact as leaders. Because leaders, we create weathers, we create cultural, we create climates. So, be mindful about your own behaviors and actions, and think before you speak or act. And I think that you'll be glad you do.
How nice is that? How nice. Maya, thank you so much. I don't think the time that we've had to spend does justice to the wealth of information and knowledge and insights which are there in your book. But then, hey, that's why the book is there. We'll go out and get a copy for ourselves. But we just want to thank you so much for being on the show with us, for talking to us about saving face. And we just look forward to having you back on the show and talking about some other aspects. So for our listeners, I encourage you to go check out the book, connect with Maya, and share your feedback and how you've been able to use the book. She also has some YouTube videos, and she's also active on LinkedIn. So engage with her, and let's all work together to build tremendous amount of psychological safety for our team members. So Maya, thank you so much.
Yeah, I have actually, AJ, before you go, I have a gift for all the listeners.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I have a gift. So if you go to my website, it's www.mayahuchan.com. It's MAYAHUCHAN.com. You go to my website, and you can download a free article titled 13 Ways to Save Face in an Authentic Way. 13 Ways to Save Face. So just go to my website, and then you can have a free download. That's my gift.
All right. Thank you so much. So I'm going to put up the website address. So remember to go to the website and get your free gift of 13 Ways to Save Face. So thank you so much, Maya, and we look forward to seeing you again. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, AJ. Same to you.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF-approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.